30 days, and welcome to my beer world. Today I have a very special guest. We've been planning this for a while. This is Ken Hunnemeder, and he works for Goose Island. And tell us what you do there, Ken.
I am in the marketing department, so I do a lot of the communications at Goose Island. I'm involved in a lot of social media, websites, doing a lot of photography, and putting together all the little videos around the brewery and telling those stories in that medium.
So we all know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Goose Island. Has that been difficult for you, sort of overcoming those challenges?
You know, when the news first came into play, we were kind of all like shell-shocked a little bit. Right. But honestly, there's really been not too much of a change. There's maybe a few more pieces of paper to fill out, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Kind of keeps us maybe a little bit more organized than we used to be. But we're focused on increasing capacity. The sale has allowed us to increase production.
I've always been a fan of Goose Island beers, and certainly when the buyout was big news and it was all over the craft beer scene, and I know there were a lot of people who said, I'm not going to drink Goose Island beers anymore. People took a really hard stand, but you know, to me, the quality of Goose Island beers has always been phenomenal. One of the most famous is the Bourbon County series, and we are very pleased today to be able to taste four. We have a Bourbon County 2011. I have one that a fan has sent me from Michigan. Thank you very much. And this is a 2008. This is coming from Steven. And then we have, what are these two? This is a coffee and a rye?
Yeah, so we have Bourbon County coffee is something that we've started doing every year. We have a roasting company called Intelligentsia that is literally next door to us at the brewery. So we use a different bean from them every year. So that's where it changes every year, but we always come out with a different Bourbon County coffee variant. Bramble Rye is a little bit different, where we used a rye barrel and we aged that beer with raspberries and blackberries.
Oh wow!
So it's a fruit variation which we've never actually bottled before with Bourbon County.
Well, I pretty much love everything that has to do with rye, rye beer, rye barrel, rye whiskey,
yeah.
And then I'm also a big blackberry raspberry fan, so I don't know how this one can possibly.
You'll probably like that one a lot.
Yeah, and then we're going to finish out with your barley wine.
Yeah, we have King Henry, and the story behind King Henry is that a couple years ago we made another variation of Bourbon County called Bourbon County Rare. And what made that so special is that we aged that in Pappy Van Winkle 23-year-old bourbon barrels, and we aged that one for 2 years. Typically, just your average Bourbon County gets aged for about 11-12 months. So the extra maturation in the bourbon cask on that beer made it quite something, especially since it was in the Pappy Van Winkle barrel. And so when we were done with those barrels for Rare, we actually filled them back up with the barley wine, and that became King Henry.
Okay, well, let's get started. Without further ado, which one should we start with?
I would say probably we could start with the King Henry. That's going to have a little bit less roast and that sort of thing, so it might be a nice jumping off point.
Well, just lovely dried fruit, toffee, burnt caramel. Ooh. That'll pack a punch.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, when we're using bourbon barrels, we use them once, and that's it. We'll use them maybe for something else, but especially with Bourbon County, we don't reuse those bourbon barrels for that beer. But just because the Pappy Van Winkle is such a special and fantastic barrel, you can still get a lot of bourbon character out of it,
Absolutely.
even though it's a second run barrel from a beer standpoint.
Next up, the Bourbon County 2011.
This is our most recent iteration of this beer. Came out towards the end of 2011.
Right.
And this one is aged in Heaven Hill barrels, about 8 to 16 years.
This has just got that gorgeous trademark. I mean, I think I've had the last at least 5 years in Bourbon County, and it's always got this trademark, gorgeous, dark chocolate, tobacco, coffee espresso note, and then that beautiful woodiness from the barrels.
Yeah, the key, I mean, we take the extra time and age this for a complete 11-12 months, and I think that really kind of calms down the harshness that sometimes you get from bourbon barrel-aged beers. It's vanilla and really smooth and silky, and that's what we're looking for when making bourbon county.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to try the 2008, like I said, that was sent out to me from Stephen from Michigan. Thank you, Stephen. We're going to see, we thank you, and we're going to see how this is aged, the 2008. Now tell me, how many years has this been in production?
I started making Bourbon County in 1992. It was originally just a pub beer at our Clybourne Brew Pub. I think it started in 4 barrels.
Wow, now this one's so much slicker. It's got a richness to it. It's sort of, this is like, to me, this is really an example of blackstrap molasses coming through and some of those really viscous kind of flavors.
Yeah, it's, I'm glad we're tasting this vintage in particular, because personally I find that this one is drinking really, really well right now. So, and I've seen comments going around that everyone's starting to drink their 2008s because...
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is the one that I am most looking forward to, the Bramble Rye with the blackberries and raspberries. I'm completely thrilled about this one. So.
Yeah, this one was pretty intensive to make. The blackberries and the raspberries were in separate barrels, so you would have a row of rye casks with blackberries and a row with raspberries, and then later would go through a blending process depending on how our brewers kind of wanted the beer to come out. This is probably at this point maybe about 5 months aged in the bottle, and when it first came out, the raspberry, the acidic raspberry was at the forefront, and now I think you're starting to get some of the more muted blackberry tones coming through.
I have to tell you, this is one of the most unique beers. I mean, I can't think of anything that this resembles. This is really special. This is very special and unique. This is a beer that I can imagine turning wine drinkers to. This is a great transition beer for people who like port, for people who like those after dinner botrytis infected type dessert wines. This is, in fact, you know what this reminds me of a little bit is, have you ever had Pedro's Divinas?
I have not.
It is a Spanish dessert wine that's super caramely and super rich and very viscous, and it's absolutely heavenly. This is the kind of beer that you could turn that kind of drinker to, I think.
Yeah, it's great for dessert. You've got the chocolatey note and the espresso note that you're going to get from Bourbon County, but for adding fruity dessert type notes to that, it's perfect.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is my favorite so far. Cheers.
Finished that one.
I did. That was fantastic. Okay, and so we are on our final beer. Tell us about this one again. This is the coffee, right?
Yes, so this is Bourbon County Coffee. So like I said, this year we use the Angelinaka bean from Intelligentsia, our neighbors. So I have to give a shout out to them. It's a Bolivian bean. So the process with these is taking the beer straight from the barrels into a bright tank, and then after that actually cold brewing the coffee and blending that in afterwards. Okay. So we're not actually, a lot of people think that we're taking the beans and throwing it in the barrels with it. Right. That's not the case.
Okay. Now I have a slight intolerance to coffee. Is this going to totally freak me out? Is this high in caffeine?
It can be.
Uh-oh, people. Hopefully you won't see me bouncing off the walls here in about 10 seconds. Wow. Now see, I love the aroma of coffee. I love walking in coffee houses, but I can't have it. So I can take it in very small doses. So I'll take a tiny baby sip of this one.
Well, you're mixing your uppers and downers. So
right.
I think you'll be
so
okay.
It'll blend. Yeah. It'll all blend together. like a fine wine or a purely crafted beer, it will all blend together. Well, that's delicious. Now this is what I would call a Sunday brunch beer.
And then you take a nap in the afternoon.
And then you take a nap at about 2 o'clock.
Perfect Sunday.
What's the alcohol content of this one?
This one, because we're actually blending with the cold pressed coffee, it comes in a little bit lower, around 14.
All right, well, I've been sitting up this whole time. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to hang out here. We're going to drink these amazing Bourbon County Stouts. We've got some friends coming in. I thank you so much, Ken, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
We have learned so much about Bourbon County Stout. If you're out there, get your hands on it. My favorite is the Bramble. What's your favorite, can you say?
Oh, you know, I like to drink coffee a lot. Big coffee fan, and love Bourbon County, so that's probably my favorite.
We'll see you next time on